We tried to make Precarious in the early 1980s and simply failed. And one of the reasons we failed was that we couldn't cast it. Gary Oldman said, no, you met me. I don't actually remember meeting him, but he'd come in for it. But of course, in the 5 years, he would have filled out and become, as it were, the right age. He must have been too young when he came in before. So in a way, we couldn't raise the money to make it in the early 80s, and that proved to be a blessing. I was friends with John Lahr, and I was working with Alan. I was friends with Alan. And John did this book, was working on this book, and then it was published, and it turned out to be sensational. I remember Kenneth Williams talking about it, saying that he had no idea of this other life. And I think I might have said, oh, why don't we do a film of it? I might not have done, but it might. It just seemed really interesting. I don't quite know what I found interesting about it, but the idea of someone having a sort of secret life like that was so interesting. Well, because we were all sort of friends, I don't know, John wrote the book, and then I said that, and Alan said that. Alan then went off and spent a long time writing the script. And we tried to make it in '82, and that didn't work. And he then rewrote it. So in other words, Alan got interested in it, and off his own bat, I can't remember if, clearly My Beautiful Laundrette changed everything, and then if Alan rewrote it, thinking, oh, well, look, Stephen's now gone up in the world, or if Alan just rewrote it because he was interested and in a sense hadn't solved the problems the first time round. He invented the double narrative, I remember. So there are two narrators, aren't there? There's Wally and Vanessa narrating it. And I think he invented that in the meantime. So in a sense, he was just trying to solve certain problems, and it took him a longish time to do that. There's a sort of point when you think, I don't know how to tell this bit, or to tell this, all you're trying to do is give the audience a piece of information. In the end, it's easy just to say, look, you need to know that they now killed somebody, and then the story can carry on. If you have to dramatize it, you'll take 20 minutes to get them from there to there. Someone tells the story, you get from there to there. That's all you're trying to do, is to give people, find a solution to how you give people information. Well, Gary had done this film about Sid Vicious. And somehow, Gary is rather sensational. In the film, the Sid Vicious film, which I saw the night before I met him, it was clearly going to make a big splash. Or maybe, after all, Dan DeLoach was unknown when he made My Beautiful Laundrette, so nobody ever questioned anything, really. Nobody, and we weren't making it for very much money, so there weren't conditions imposed on us. Gary Oldman, I'm so physically resembling the person, you slightly sort of destabilise it. At the same time, it's so incredible what you're doing. She's a wonderful woman. Her approval would have been very reassuring. She seemed, I haven't met her for 20 years, but she seemed a terrific woman. And Frances Barber is brilliant playing her.
In those days, if you were from Leicester and you wanted to be an actor, you had to get rid of your accent. I,
for some reason, associate her with wearing leopard skin, which seems to be a sure sign of wickedness. But she had that same mischievous quality. I can't remember why we chose Vanessa, but I remember Wally Shawn arriving and said, I suppose you've got Vanessa playing Pinocchio. And I said, yes. How did you know? And he said, well, it's such an obvious idea.
He said, next time, can I bring my friend? And I thought, does he mean friend? And I thought, yes, he does mean friend, which was quite bold in those days. It's the dark ages, men and men, and they could still put you in prison for it.
Peggy was such an extraordinary woman. She wasn't at all like Vanessa. She was a little sort of bird-like woman, but she was a sort of poetic dreamer. Dreamer's the wrong word. She was also an agent, so she was actually very hard-nosed, but she got writers who she represented to work, to write better and to be sort of true to themselves in some way. So a lot of my friends, she had a tremendous influence on. And she was very funny and very eccentric. Oh, Alan always adored Julie Walters. She did a day on something else. And then she went on to do other things, but he always adored her. And she's brilliant.
Oh, good afternoon.
Who's this?
This is my husband, ignore him.
Your son is a born actor.
An actor? But he went to Clark's College. He has done short on the other badge in his blazer.
This boy will never make a typist.
We can do 40 words a minute.
Shut up.
No, he must take up a dramatic career.
But I've sacrificed all down the line in order for him to land a job in an office.
Oh, Mrs. Orton, your son must go in for a scholarship to RADA.
RADA?
The Royal Academy of Dramatic Art.
Well, you see, people like that, people like Julie, they just understand about provincial life and lower middle class people. We shot most of it in the studio, yeah. You know, they lived in this idiotically small flat. So we built it. Well, all those bathroom scenes we had to do. I think I have been in the flat. I think we did go to the flat. I mean, all you could see was that, but not when it had all the collages up and all that stuff. It was tiny. I filmed it in a part of Islington because you could get more camera angles on it. I, probably foolishly didn't shoot in Noel Road. Noel Road is rather tree-lined, isn't it? It's rather a sort of peaceful street. Well, in those days, going to Morocco was rather exotic. There's a wonderful bit where there's a pastiche of Some Like It Hot, where they all run down to the seafront, singing. I don't know what they sing. Are they singing by the sea, by the sea, by the beautiful sea? No, I remember reshooting bits. I mean, you're always sort of fiddling around, maybe missing the point or making a mistake. Oh, I see, no, it should be that, or that. And it was such a, I think it's a dreadful story. I remember thinking, if people knew this story, they should, this is a terrible story we're telling. He was so likeable. And I remember getting Gary to smile a lot. All it takes, really. The actor smiles and you fall in love with them. Then they do horrible things. Oh, it's such a terrible story.
I loved him. I must have loved him. I chose him to kill me.
I can remember we painted, if you look at old Fred Astaire films, where they paint the windows on the floor, they would paint the shadows in. And we started painting shadows in on the wall at one point. It was just so interesting. The cameraman must have seen some expressionist film and thought, oh, this is the way to do it, so we'll do that. I don't know what you mean by love, but Joe had been picked up and educated by this chap and turned into a writer. My first wife turned me into a film director. It's such a sort of huge, overwhelming experience. You're already so entwined, and I'm sure at the end he wanted to leave him. It's just the nature of relationships, isn't it? That it isn't all apple pie. It's much more sort of complicated than that.